Hello and welcome to this episode of Akrinos Access. I'm your host, Eric Matei, joined today by the eyewear image expert, Wendy Buchanan, for a fascinating episode that we're calling Would You Buy From You? Now, y'all, this is the first of a three-part series where Wendy is going to be joining us here at Akrinos Access, talking about all these really cool, interesting ways to assess your optical and find ways to grow that independent optical that, well, it seems to me everybody's wanting to get into doing these days, and for good measure, right? So for starters, I'd like to, again, welcome Wendy to the program. Wendy, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here with you, Eric. I love your energy. So I like to be in this environment with you.
Let's do it. Let's jump right into it. You know, Wendy, we do a lot of work together, collaborating, working with Akrinos clients, working with Be Spectacular clients. And you know, as far as this first episode of this three-part series goes, again, we're calling it Would You Buy From You? And maybe you can set the stage here and kind of kick things off by, let's just talk about some of these trends going on in optical right now. Maybe you could shed some light on some of those recent trends in the optical business.
Yeah, well, I think if we look at the trends for the analytics in optical, not a lot has changed in years, which is multi-pair sales. And multi-pair sales are always hovering 10, if we're lucky, 20%. And that brings up the question, like, why? Why aren't they buying from you? Why aren't those patients looking at multiple pairs, with eyewear being the fashion statement? And if we're not talking about them as fashion, then we need to change that conversation really fast too, because it's that conversation that people talk about when they leave your practice. They see someone on the street, it's like, oh, I love your glasses. They're not saying, oh, I love the lenses in your frames. They're saying, I love your glasses. And that starts a conversation. And so I think that multi-pair analytic or metric is something to really focus on when we go through this conversation. The other is what every optometrist business owner wants to talk about. They want to talk about capture rate.
Sure.
And that's typically a good capture rate, a good office. I'm seeing 50 to 60%. Why are we missing that other 40%? And that might be why, like, we really want to look at those details. Why are they walking out? And so those, if we're talking about trends in analytics, that's what I'm seeing with the business owners that I'm working with. Do you see something different than that in your numbers?
Yeah, it's really fascinating that you kind of serve that up as the kickoff here, Wendy, right? Because, you know, when we do take a step back and look at what's happening across the industry, right, we are still seeing it. Patients are gravitating to private practice for that clinical care, right? I mean, independent private practice are still performing the majority of the comprehensive eye exams out there. But yeah, when we look at the retail side, how are patients behaving when they're crossing from the lane to the optical, crossing that chasm from patient to consumer? It seems that's where the competitive environment is really shaking things up. And to your point, I mean, it's impacting in-office conversions in the opticals. We're seeing that step down. And also what you mentioned about the multi-pair piece. But to your point also, Wendy, it's really fascinating when you consider that, you know, again, you see somebody walking on the street or in the grocery store with some glasses, and you're typically complimenting them on the look of the glasses and how the glasses complement their image and their fashion, rather than talking about the ins and outs of the lens or the prescription, the powers of the prescription and stuff like that. So so I think that's a really great, thoughtful way to kick this off, right? Because again, I think it really does kind of beg this question in the context of patients. Again, they're going to private practice for the care, but increasingly they're walking with that RX, and it begs this question, why? And it begs this question, would you buy from you? So why don't we start to unpack some of this? And look, I know in the work you do in Be Spectacular and in Perceptions Eyewear is all about bringing the optical to the forefront, bringing optical merchandising and patient interaction to the forefront. So why don't you start unpacking some of that? When we're talking about
Yeah.
optical and merchandising and patient experience and stuff along those lines.
There's so much to unpack, right? We'll try to go this fast. I know we've got 15, 20 minutes together, but private practice really has the competitive advantage because they can create that personalized effect. They have the ability to bring in expertise that big box stores can't replicate, and for sure online can't replicate. And it really comes down to your team, the staff. And I think, every conversation I have, we go through those analytics first because that's our way to see if we're being successful, see where the gaps are. But really, it's the people. It's the people in your optical that have that first interaction. And a lot of people leave because they're not wowed at that first interaction. So that really sets the stage for everything that happens. Do they do they feel, I know staffing's a huge issue right now. It has been for the last couple of years. Well, the patient picks up on that too. If the
Sure.
staff is overwhelmed, if they're running in six directions, they're multitasking. I always say multitasking is so last year. Focus. Focus on what we're doing. What our optical is huge. If the team, their focus, or one or two people, all their focus is that customer experience and wowing that patient they walk in, the chances of converting them on the other end of the patient journey goes way up too. So I think people, the team is really important, and having that team in place that know how to engage. They know how to lead the sales conversation. They look like a stylist. Yeah, they're an eye care professional, but do they also look like they can style eyewear? Do they have that dual first impression?
You hit the nail on the head of this stick of dynamite that could itself open a full hour plus hour plus session here, and it's all around this competitive advantage,
Yes.
right? And you hit the nail on the head, Wendy, because look, when we start to look at the world of merchandising, and how product is being presented, when that patient is in that office, in that private practitioner's office, there's a tremendous leg up that you've got over big box and online as it pertains to merchandising. And how is that? You have boots on the ground, and you have the
Yeah.
opportunity between yourself as the doctor, your opticians, every member of your team across that patient journey, an opportunity to really wow that patient. But at the same time, I think you're hitting on something that's critically important that needs to be honored, and that is the degree to which there's a lot that goes on in these practices. Right? You mentioned that term multitasking is so last year. But yeah, Wendy, I mean, obviously, look, it is. We've had many conversations and collaborations and serving clients together, right? The work you do in Be
Hmm.
Spectacular, the work we do within Akrinos is it's really important that we respect the bandwidth of our team. And when we're talking about this whole concept of would you buy from you and your optical, at times some of the changes that shall be made maybe is as little as simply removing a task from your optical department, maybe assigning it to another department that has the bandwidth to better serve it, right? Or to your point, perhaps it's simply having our team have the know-how and the acumen to be able to enter these conversations with patients in an effective manner to engage that patient in the purchasing journey. So as we dig down into this, let's maybe get a little look from different phases of the practice life cycle, right? Because there's also something to be said, as we're talking about would you buy
Mm,
from you, right? And as you know, our
yeah.
audience in Akrinos, we're working with doctors that are emerging practitioners, starting businesses, doctors that are looking to maximize those peak earnings and growth years, and then doctors that are looking to
Yeah.
transition their business. So, how would you say that some of this applies if we see these same, the competitive advantage holds true, the opportunity to wow patients holds true? What are some of these key differentiators that practices should embrace at different phases of their life cycle?
Yeah. Well, I think the cold start, they've got like a blank canvas. So when cold start, they can really be bringing on team members that are just focused on customer experience and selling. And selling's not a bad word. We sell eyewear, we sell contact lenses, we sell makeup now, a lot of optometry clinics. So they have that advantage because they can differentiate themselves immediately by creating a client experience. Someone who's more established, they're in those peak growth years, well, they're comfortable. Why would we change anything? What we have is working. They have that a little bit more maybe of a fixed mindset where this is the way we've always done it. And as eye care professionals and even as humans, we get comfortable doing something. And if it's not broke, don't fix it. But back to like that point about overwhelm, overwhelm isn't just a staffing issue, it becomes a revenue issue. So then you have to really look at, is that state of overwhelm or that way that you've always done things, is is it affecting the revenue? Yeah, you might be doing great and you're seeing 9% growth or 15% growth, but what are you leaving on the table? And I think that's where you really fine tune systems and processes. And overwhelm can look very disorganized too, like it can feel scattered, and the patients know that. So I think to really evaluate that, and then someone who's ready to sell, they're transitioning. It's almost like selling your home. You put up with a lot of stuff because it's your day to day and you're comfortable and it's always worked. And why would I invest in changing my decor or new product? But when you're ready to sell, you look at every little thing. You look at the hardware on your doors, you look at the paint, you look at the trim, you organize closets that no one may ever look in. You organize a drawer that no one going through your home should ever look at. But there's this feeling of let's get everything in order. So I think where all those things can kind of overlap. Like I think a cold start can really look at, you know, how can I avoid that overwhelm? How can I look at numbers? How can I bring my team in to care about the numbers, to care about the revenue, and start out a little bit differently too? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And as a matter of fact, there's a lot of overlap in each of them. I really like
Hmm.
how you kicked it off by talking about the opportunity that cold starts have in working with the blank canvas. Wendy,
Yeah.
I know, and you and I, we were having a conversation even before going live to record this, talking about you know the opportunity in the blank canvas, the opportunity of the cold start to really paint on this blank canvas. But the moment you're trucking along in your business, right, and you are getting to those peak earnings and growth years, oftentimes you have kind of fallen into the status quo, whatever that status quo may be. I mean, for some, the status quo as it pertains to our topic of conversation here in the optical, for some that status quo is, oh, I'm going to put in my optical whatever the latest from the big frame lines is going to be that they're going to come out and try to put on my boards. Only to find yourself down the road kind of confined, right? Kind of having these handcuffs confined of what type of opportunity
Mhm.
you have to really proactively grow your business. Um, so tying it back to that experience, right? And I think that's really
Mhm.
the key takeaway here really, no matter where one is in that practice life cycle, whether they're just starting out, getting a cold start open, whether they're looking to maximize those peak earnings years, or they're looking to transition, it all ties back to that experience.
Yeah.
And again, whether it's the brand new practice wanting to really wow that patient who's coming in for the first time into the new business, or that
Yeah.
practice that's looking to really wow that patient that perhaps has been coming to them for years, or at least has been driving by their office for years. And then thirdly, I really like how you made that analogy of transitioning the business to selling a home, right? Because it's not until you're going to look to sell the home that perhaps some of those things that were being overlooked in the process that you give some attention to. Um,
Yeah. Well, I think what's so important too is that visual impact. When we think about them walking in your clinic, wherever you are in your business journey, it's that first impression. And that's where they're deciding. It used to be, I think everybody's heard the saying, you have 60 seconds to make a good impression. And I would argue now that you might have 20 seconds, but you also might only have 6 seconds, where they're that quickly assessing everything and deciding, I like you, I don't like you, I don't like your frame. It seems scattered, it seems hurried, everybody's running. Um, they're on, and sometimes that's a conversation too, like the same thing. Oh, hi, how can I help you today? Oh, hi, the same thing over and over. And this happened to me at a metro. I was at a grocery shopping store, and I put my bags up on the like, what is that called? The elevator.
yeah. Well, oh my
Oh,
gosh, what do
what
they
is
call it? The
it called?
checkout? Yeah, a little checkout belt. What do they call it?
The belt, the belt.
The
Okay,
conveyor
that
belt
was
in the
like,
grocery.
yeah, total brain cramp there. But I put my bags up, then I load up the belt with all of my groceries, and then the checkout clerk says, "Did you want to buy bags today?" And I kind of looking around, and I'm like, my bags are right there, like right in front of you. But that when that happened, I'm like, I thought of that in my trainings, because yeah, you can get really comfortable with just saying the same things over and over again. And
Mm,
what I love to show people is, how do you engage? How do you engage at an emotional level that shows you're human? We're not perfect, but we're here to serve at that highest level. And that all is happening. If we're lucky to get 60 seconds, that's how quickly it happens. It's not happening in the exam room. It's happening when they walk through the door.
yeah, that is so powerful there, Wendy, and really kind of I think is a couple things. One, it's a good wrap up to this opening conversation. And I think a really good setup to episode 2, right? Where we're now going to jump into this whole concept of reframing the game to really optimize and amplify the optical and maximize the potential of the optical. But before we wrap up, for those of our viewers out there that may have yet to meet you, again, we're here on this episode of Akrinos Access. This is the first of 3 episodes with eyewear image expert Wendy Buchanan. So, Wendy, why don't you please share a little bit about your background and the work you do in Be Spectacular?
Yeah. Well, first, like, it's great to meet you if I haven't met you out there. But I'm a licensed optician. I'm an image consultant, and I'm a sales trainer. And those three things have been an evolution, where I started as a licensed optician, worked 10 years, really grew bored with the industry, decided to jump and become an image consultant, thinking, now I'm never going to sell another pair of glasses. I've made my exit from optical, which led to me starting, instead of leaving, I transitioned my image consulting styling business to an eyewear styling company and created a mobile eyewear boutique. And from there, what I teach in the Be Spectacular sales clinics and workshops is what I had to create over 2 decades ago to really survive as a mobile eyewear boutique. And what I did was I combined all of my trainings from image consulting with eyewear and created the sales process and structure that I help optometry teams have a set way to sell glasses. To sell glasses, like selling is not a bad word. So I really teach them how to get comfortable with sales and then how to elevate those opticals to be that go-to destination in whatever area that the opticals. Oh, you're muted, Eric.
Fascinating stuff there, Wendy. And again, to all of our viewers out there, please go check out bespectacular.com for all the cool ways that really the cool opportunities out there to really differentiate and grow in independent optical. Like, I don't care what anyone says, even in the world of all of these corporate interests and supply chains and alliance buying groups and all these puppet masters that seem to be out there. Wendy, I know you and I have realized this. We talk about this a bunch. There's never been a better opportunity to grow in independent optical. I mean, truly, we're living in a time where people now more than ever want to be unique, want to determine their own fashion, their own style, make their own decisions. And when we look at the world of optical and all of the disruption in opticals, there's been ever more competition coming into the space. That's where I think I'd like to take it back to how you opened this episode of Akrinos Access, where you simply said, look, private practices have this remarkable competitive advantage compared to everyone else out there as it pertains to amplifying their optical. So,
Yeah.
Wendy, I think that's, unless you had any closing words here, what do you say we wrap this up and look forward to getting episode number 2, where maybe we'll start to share some of these ways that doctors can reframe their game and really step up their opportunity in their optical.
That'd be awesome. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Absolutely. So, y'all, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Akrinos Access, where we're joined by Wendy Buchanan, the eyewear image expert from Be Spectacular. If you do want to connect with Wendy, head on over to bespectacular.com, or you can shoot her a note at wendy@bespectacular.com. And stay tuned. Tune into our next episode of Akrinos Access, where we're going to be joined again by Wendy Buchanan for episode 2 of this 3-part series, where we're going to help you understand how you can reframe your game to really maximize the optical in your practice. Catch you soon.